have a great fly. I mean, for those of you who dream of being smallmouth junkies or are smallmouth junkies, you know what this fly is. It's a great fly. It's an excellent pattern. Thank you, Bob, for going to all the trouble to show us how to do this. And anything you need to add. So the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, well, thank you. This is going to be a hard follow after Fred had that nice presentation. But the Gartside Gurgler was, was developed by Jack Gartside. Jack was a cab driver in Boston, and he learned his first fly tying from Ted Williams, and when he was about 19 years old. A little known fact is that even though he was a cab driver, he graduated from the University of Mass and was a teacher in Boston for about 7 years. And then some of the students set fire to a couple of the desks, and he decided that cab driving was safer in Boston than being a schools teacher. But he's well known for a number of flies: the gurgler, the sparrow, the soft hackle streamer, and the Gartside pheasant hopper. He was one of the first tyers in Sports Illustrated back in 1982. And so basically he tied for the salt water. He was a striper fisherman and bluefish. And that pattern then, basically moved off into, both bass, pike, trout, and has been adapted, throughout this time.
Can I ask a quick question, Bob, while you're on the topic? Back then, what did he actually use for material? Was it sheet foam?
He was one of the first individuals who used, closed cell foam in the gurgler.
Okay.
He also he tied everything with natural material, including clipping off some stuff from his mother's milk stole, supposedly, and pigeon feathers he gathered at Boston, outside, Boston Garden. And the other interesting thing is that he used to tie while he was a taxi cab driver. So waiting for riders, he would actually tie in the cab with a vise attached to his steering wheel.
Wow. That'd be a great picture.
Yeah, it really would be. I was looking for one, and like I said, maybe I'll be able to put together something for another presentation. And I'll get smaller here in a minute. That's basically, there we go. That's the traditional Gartside Gurgler that we'll be tying. And, over the last year or so, I've been doing a lot of work with foam and, playing with, I don't know if you remember Steven Schweitzer.
Oh, yeah.
Came and presented. And if anybody's working with topwater foam, this is a great resource. From that, started working with, wiggler patterns, some great frog patterns, and, basic poppers. But tonight we're going to work on the gurgler. So let me see if we can transfer over here.
One more question for you, Bob, while you're at it, and you can dig a little deeper and elaborate. I understand there are multiple levels of quality when it comes to closed cell foam. And share with us what you've learned or what you do know, what works best for what holds glue.
As far as quality, of course, basically you go to the fly tyer, shop, and you'll get a small package for, $2 or $3. And supposedly that is a higher quality foam. Or you go to either Hobby Lobby or Joann Fabric, and this is a 2 millimeter thick foam, multi-package, used for school children. And that's about $7 for that group in a package. And that's what I've been using. It's, pretty good foam to tie with, and it doesn't, the thread doesn't go through it and break it.
Takes marker well?
Pardon?
Takes marker well?
Yeah, it does. Let's see. There we go. There's the marker on the top of the frog.
Okay.
And it glues up real nice. Basically, you can, package it. I get some of this and put that together in foam, and then, punch the holes out.
What do
And
you use to glue your foam together?
I use a spray foam, and right off the top of my head, I'm trying to think what it is. The can's downstairs, so I'll get that
Oh,
back
the
to you.
3M77 spray adhesive?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The 3M77.
Good stuff.
And then what you end up with is, a pattern like that with everything punched out.
And you don't have any problem with separation or anything?
No. And I use just basic soup, I use super glue.
Okay. Do you ever put any kind of exterior coating on yours, like flex cement, epoxy, clear cure, anything like that?
I haven't yet. I figured I'd just tie enough to when they disintegrate. If you do an easy tie, you just tie up a bunch of them.
Yeah.
But that's something I may try just for some durability.
What do you find works best with keeping your eyes on?
Well, I've been using some super glue, and the other is 6,000.
Right. Okay.
I think the 6,000, if you're going to use anything, but relative to actually going to the foam, use super glue, and if you're going into feathers or something, then the 6,000.
Okay.
And then when you get around to cutting the foam, you can use a knife or a circular cutter, but you can also, this is a great tool, just a paper cutter. And if you've got one, if you're doing a lot, or your wife has something like that for scrapbooking, that's a great tool to get straight lines. Okay, any other question before we go to the, well, let me go a couple of things. The gurgler itself, is being used, you got various patterns. And I'll show those closer when we get up, but basically, you look at this. This is a pattern I just designed for the cicada hatch out of the, with the same type of gurgler, but a shorter tail. And then you can play around with it. And here's a design for a frog. So as you can see, you can expand that pattern to do almost anything you want to do. The other key is if you are working with it relative to, if you tie a loop knot on it, you're going to go ahead and just pull it across the surface and get a good gurgle and a good pop. If you tie it down straight and tie an attachment knot to it, you can actually get it to dive. So depending upon how you would, go ahead.
What was its intended purpose? What was the initial intended purpose, to dive or to be a topwater?
The intended purpose was a topwater for striped bass.
Okay.
And
that's accomplished with a loop knot, right?
Right.
Okay.
And another interesting part, that this design was actually based on a bass plug. Fred Abergast, his basically lure, the jitterbug, if everybody remembers it.
Oh, yeah.
That's what the pattern was based on. So you'll see a lot of flies, were based on a pattern from, plugs and stuff. And this is one of them. Any other questions before we get to the tie? Okay. See if we can share screen. Share. Did that work?
Good.
All right. So that's the basically that's the Gartside, the Gurgler. And what we have is a basic 2mm foam, bucktail, and some flash on the bottom. There are a couple of hooks. The hook I'm using is, let me get my glasses. I'm going to change glasses here a minute. Basically, you're going to use a bass type hook. And this one's a TMC number 6. And it is basically got a wide, almost a popper type. The other good hook to use if you want a little bit of a straighter hook is the Mustad, which is almost like a bait type hook. And I've tied quite a bit with that also. Material we're going to use is, of course, our bucktail. We're going to go with the foam. A couple of things I forgot when we went is that there are a couple of ways of doing your foam we talked about. Basically, I just go with a straight run of 1/2 inch 2mm foam in strips, and then as I'll show you, we'll just go ahead and cut that down. Another method is to use from River Run, the cutters, River Road. They actually have a cutter for various size. And there is the foam that cuts out. So if we start using, a UTC, get set here. Basically, use a 280 UTC uni-thread, and start and put down a thread wrap. And what I'm looking at is getting the bucktail up to about 2/3. You want to get a wrap around so that the bucktail will actually, we can secure that to the hook shank. I go back just about to where it's starting to, the hook is starting to bend down. First material is going to be some white bucktail and just about a 1/2 or so pencil width of white bucktail. And we're not going to, of course, stack it. All we're going to do is pull out the extra fibers. The length should be about 2 times, anywhere from 1 to 1.5 to 2 times the hook shank length. And I'm a little bit light. There we go. So I'm going to go up about 2/3 and get a nice long flowing tail. Once I get it set, I actually put some super glue right on the top to help secure that up to about a 2/3 point. Going to go ahead and set that on top of the hook shank and put in 2 loose wraps so that the deer hair doesn't flare, and then wind forward. Okay, and once we've got that secured, that was kind of a loose, then I'm going to go ahead and tighten that down tighter. So you've got a good, secure, tight wrap on it. Okay, for this, I'm going to use some chartreuse for the top layer. And the thickness is going to be just a little bit thinner than the white on the bottom. And again, get rid of all the loose hairs. Set that on top. And we can actually cut that off a little bit. Now we're going to bring that forward. Again, a couple of loose wraps. And then bring that forward. When I bring it forward fairly loose. Get that tightened down, and then when I come back, I tighten it down real tight. That gets us a good secure tail. I'm going to use a little bit of flash, and I use about 3 or 4 lengths of flash. And we'll tie that in on the lateral line. Right on the side. Bring that over the top for the other side. And set that in and set it tight. Got 2 pieces of foam. And I went with, sometime I'll go, I know I put in somewhere around 1.5 inches. The intent is we want to get the front right about 1/2 inch over the eye. And if we look here, we've got just about that. So what we're going to do is take this and cut down an angle like so to attach that. I'm going to do the same with the green. And that's your attachment point. And you can see if you use the river cutter, you get a little bit better shape to work, but this works fine just working with the basic foam. when you put it on, your top part of the fly is going to be on the bottom and the bottom's going to be on the top, so that when you pull it over, and I've tied a number of them and reverse that. Okay, you notice we're just about right there. So we want to be right about there. So that's in our tie-in point. It's going to come up just a little bit. And with the thread, you want to rotate counterclockwise to widen out the thread. So it's basically flat. Tie in 2 wraps and then make sure you've got enough of a head. And we have that. I'm going to tie in our second piece of foam, which is too short. You notice that the piece I cut was too short. So again, the same, you want to make sure you widen the thread so that it doesn't cut through the foam. Work that back and then work it in tight. At this point, there we go. Some unedited pearl. You can either do that, or of course you can also, dub in something, but this makes it a little bit easier. Break off the front so that you can get an attachment point. Get that down and bring your thread then all the way forward. And we're going to go about 1 eye length back from the eye. Then we're going to wrap. Now the wraps don't have to be real tight on this. Basically, I wrap it relatively loose.
Yeah.
And then tie it down. At this point, we're going to bring the bottom foam forward, and right about that point, like I said, about an eye length back. Make sure you've got your thread unwrapped so it's wide, and pull that down, and just check to make sure that it's fit right. Bring the top piece over, check that and make sure it's about right. And I put, again, some super glue right on the top there, so the 2 pieces will stick together. Bring that with a little bit of tension and secure that down. Okay, once I have that down, build up a head in the front. You want to go ahead and build that up so that you get that lift of the head. So you want to build up a little bit to get a nice, good bump. I'll cut that off. And then to whip finish, it's a lot easier if you flip the fly so that you can actually get in to do your whip finish. one last step is go ahead and super glue or Zap-A-Gap the head, and what I use is a clothespin, and set that with a clothespin. And we're almost done. Basically, that's a 2-foam gurgler. And what I'd like to show you is one other, which is a little bit simpler. And this is a 1-foam. And basically a lot easier to tie, a little quicker. Use just one straight piece of foam. Again, the same.
Hey, Bob, would it be possible for you to tie that if you were to laminate those 1/2-inch strips of foam before you tied? Food for thought. It might be a little easier.
Yeah, but I'm going to show you a real easy way.
Okay. I'll be quiet.
It's an idea, but here we're going to go with something that's quite a bit easier. And basically, when I was out trying to work on my technique for spay casting with Doug, he gave me a fly, and basically it was that's what he uses, is the gurgler. And I kind of took it apart and figured out how he had tied it, and he had definitely tied it. And there it is, a lot easier. And so we're going to tie just a real quick pattern that's more of a guide type fly. And basically you're going to go through the same. We're going to go with the white bucktail on the bottom. And I tried a couple with before they did the super glue on the bottom, and it had a tendency to roll. Again, a couple of very loose wraps, and then tighten down. Loose coming forward, and then tighten up tighter coming back to the back of the hook. Our chartreuse. And a couple loose. Bring it forward, fairly loose. Drop that down and come back and really tighten that down and get that secure. And here's the change. We're going to go ahead and bring it all the way to the front within that 1-2 eyelets. And we're going to bring the foam in at that point. Okay, counter counterspin the bobbin and get the thread wide and bring that down. Secure that in. Check and make sure it's right about the right place. Okay. And now all we're going to do is actually wrap the foam right to the hook, coming back to the rear. And we're going to secure that down. At that point, we're going to bring in some, we'll go ahead and tie in our underbody. Bring your thread wraps forward. And again, wrap loose. You have that chartreuse body with the foam underneath. Secure in. Now bring your foam forward. Just secure that down. And get a good wrap to go ahead and lift the front. And go ahead and whip finish. Again, like I said, I turned it upside down so I can get better access at the hook itself. Get that set up to just about a ½ inch or so in front of the eye. We'll glue that down. And we'll take the clothespin from the first fly and set that up. And we're done. Now we take the first fly that we tied and notice that we're got the head basically glued together. And we'll put a couple little snips in there. And there we are. We're done. You can see this is a little bit of a curved hook with a bass bug that gives it that little bit of a curve. So it'll sit down lower in the water. And the one we just tied was more of a straight hook. And that will basically sit a little bit more straight out. And as I mentioned, with the cicadas coming, you know, if you work with the same pattern and tie some flash down the side, you know, tie a shorter tail with some black bucktail, some flash down the side for wings, and some orange up front for its feelers. And if you notice, the body itself is some foam. Basically, it's orange and black chenille tied together. Okay, any questions?
Yeah, Bob, I've got a quick question for you. When you're tying the thread dam in the front, if I want this to be more of a diver, do I want that thread dam to push the foam up more vertical so it'll make more of a wave, more of a splash?
Well, actually, you want the thread dam, to really keep that head up high.
On both, on the surface one and the diver?
Well, I didn't say there was a surface or a diver. I said basically it's how you tie it. If you tie it with a loop knot, right, you're going to get it more pulling this way, straight across. So you're going to get that surface and pop. If you tie it down tight and you pull it quickly, you're going to get that to drop down some.
Okay, but would it matter if I put my thread dam to make the foam steeper? Would that help or not?
It could. Actually, what I thought about doing was my next project was to try to tie a diver. Like
Okay.
this.
Inverted.
Yeah, kind of inverted.
Ah, nice.
So that was my thought, would be to almost tie it like that. Wait a minute, let me get the hook the right way. I don't put the hook through my finger. So yeah, it would actually go like that with this, with the head down below, and actually put a hole through the foam and put the head down this way.
Oh, so dive deeper.
So it would dive, it would be actually a full diver.
Yep.
So that would then dive. So that's my next challenge to try. And we're all set here. We can finish up the second fly. Basic, get that up. There we go. And as you can see, this one, you can see that's only one layer of foam throughout the body, but your foam is attached to the hook here with foam 2 at the head, and it was a much simpler, quicker tie. And probably the two most, colors. Again, I would think yellow would be good. But do remember, when you tie with 2 colors, the fish is only going to see the white on the bottom. And the top is really more for you to be able to see the fly on the surface. Okay.
Very cool. Have you fished those yet, Bob? Are they working? Do you have any fish stories to tell?
Yeah, I fished the gurglers and had some pretty good luck with them for smallmouth. And the one I'm really looking for, which I think this came from Tightline, which is the Mr. Wiggly. And I think that's a great pattern.
How small would you tie these flies?
Well, I think you can tie them down to, I don't have that here. You could tie these flies all the way down to panfish size.
So like a 10 or 12?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've got some, and I was going to find that. Where it is, I've got some that I'm going to start tying down into 10, 12 with a single piece of foam for panfish.
And would you be inclined to make those skimmers or divers?
I'd definitely make them a skimmer on the top.
Okay, nice.
You know, a nice little gentle pop with a panfish. With that small one, will, I think, you know, they'll pull them right up.
So
Yeah.
Bob, if you were gonna do it that small, would you tie it with deer hair, elk hair instead of bucktail, or still use bucktail?
Probably use a little bit of you know, bucktail, but it'd be a little bit sparser. You could also try some rabbit, or you could also use some marabou.
Cool.
So it's a pattern that you know, will take you from panfish, you know, all the way up to you know, 20, 30 pound striped bass.
Nice.
And as you can see, it's a pretty simple tie. And when you're looking at you know, where am I? Package. You know, you've got various colors, all kinds of colors, and that's about you know, $7 worth of foam. So that'll last for a long time. So as you mentioned, Mark, you know, as far as coating it, you know, with the cost you've got in the foam and the quick tie, you know, it's just almost as easier just to you know, tie a bunch up.
Right. Well, has anybody got more questions for Bob? Otherwise, great program, Bob. Good job.
Okay, thank you.